About there we go with the mic unmuted. Hello everybody, welcome to Mike's Gaming Gala. Normally at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, we have the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast, which is a podcast that I do with Retro Bliss Gaming. I simulcast it here, and you can also watch it on his channel. This week we're taking a break, so I thought I would take that time slot to do something that I've actually kind of wanted to do for a while, which is a tier ranking, a tier maker ranking of some homebrews. So we are going to be looking at homebrew games from Electronite, from Homebrew Inc, and from Intellivision Collector. The reason I chose these three publishers is I've got three reasons. First of all, almost all the games that we're going to be talking about today are still available to purchase. These guys don't really mess around in that limited run thing. They don't have, a week that you can buy their game and then it's not available the next week. So that's reason one. Reason two is that I have played all of these games. I've played every single release from all three of these publishers, at least the ones that I'm aware of. If I'm missing any, I'm sure we've got some experts in the chat that can tell me that. And third is because I actually hold all three of these guys in high regard. They produce good quality games. I may not like all of them, and I'll give the disclaimer that if I give something a C and you think it deserves an A or an S, we can still be friends. I grew up in a world where you could disagree with somebody and not hate them forever. So these are going to be my opinions. I'm going to try to be a little more objective. So if something is, I think, a well-made game, then I will... even if I don't like it, it'll probably get a higher score than normally I would give it. Let's take a quick look in the chat. We've got Code Masseur, we've got Chris Walker, Intellivision Gamer, Mr. Baseman. How's it going, guys? So, we'll hop right into it, and we will start with Homebrew Inc. Homebrew Inc. is an anonymous publisher. And the reason they're anonymous is probably you can tell from looking at a lot of these box images here. They make a lot of unlicensed ports. So to give plausible deniability, to maybe try to not be in trouble, they are going to remain anonymous, and I will not expose anybody that wishes to remain anonymous. Anonymous! But they are reputable. I've got links to how you can order these games in the description of the video. If they're not there, I'll put them in after. The first one that we're going to look at is D2K Arcade Special Edition. Now this one threw me. When we get to Elektronite, you're going to see it at the tail end, but I moved it to the tail end of that one because it's in an Elektronite box. This was surplus stock from the D2K Arcade print run. It's got a sticker on it that says Special Edition. To preface this, DK Arcade is the Donkey Kong that we should have gotten back in the day on the Intellivision. Anybody who is an Intellivision fan knows that Donkey Kong on the Intellivision sucks. And DK Arcade is an excellent version of Donkey Kong. D2K Arcade is that version of Donkey Kong. It has DK Arcade on it, plus 5 new levels. And D2K Arcade Special Edition is D2K, the extra 5 D2K levels with another set of 5 levels. You can also play as Tony. There's slight different play styles in uh, depending on which character you pick. D2K Arcade Special Edition, I think, is the best of the D2K or the DK Arcade games. I would give this one an A. Why don't I kind of break down what I would consider here? So S are games that I think that if you own an Intellivision and you collect Homebrew, everybody should have in their collection. They're just the cream of the crop, the best of the best. A is what I would consider great games, just missing that little something that would push it into the S category. Still highly recommended. B, good games. This would be probably our best ports. Like solid games, solid purchase. C is where we start to get to the does it really belong on a cartridge level, in my personal opinion. They could absolutely be good games, but they might be games that you can play on other systems for cheaper. They might be games that I'm just not a fan of. Again, these are all my personal opinions. D and F, we're probably not going to get to with any of these publishers, but D would be games that I'm full on saying this should be a ROM only. This doesn't belong on a cartridge. And F would just be like downright terrible games. Do not buy under any circumstances. You said that's D2K Arcade. Yes, but you see the little yellow sticker there, Casey? That says Special Edition. D2K Arcade Special Edition gets an A from me. Caverns of Mars. So this is one of three, and you know what? I'm going to drag up all these three Ataris off. With Atari buying Intellivision, stop doing this. Atari has shown that they're pretty chill about homebrewers doing their things, unless you start putting their branding on stuff and start doing stuff with their IPs. Even then, they're nice about it, but yeah, we got to stop doing this type of thing. Caverns of Mars. I really like Caverns of Mars. There's really... Hey, Phil, you haven't missed much. We've just done one game so far. Caverns of Mars is a good game. I really like Caverns of Mars. I've always liked Caverns of Mars. I have it for my Atari 8-bit computers. There's not much added to it. It's a good game. If you like Caverns of Mars, it's a good version of it on the Intellivision. But this is one where maybe could have been a ROM. It's certainly not a bad game. Just because something ends up in Z, it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's just, you know, this is a bell curve. You got your cream of the crop and you move down, and this one probably ends up in about the C range for me. Hello from Georgia, says Code Masseur. Welcome. Yours Revenge. Yours Revenge is kind of similar to Caverns of Mars. It's a pretty straight port of Yours Revenge, but for the Intellivision. That said, there are some added gameplay modes that I think pushes it just above Caverns of Mars in terms of what it provides new to somebody looking to play Yours Revenge on the Intellivision. It's about the same quality of port, but because it does add that little bit more, we'll throw it up into the B. Phil is here, the party begins. Yes, Retro Bliss Gaming is in the chat. Like I said, we normally would be doing our podcast tonight, but we're taking a week off, so after the stream, absolutely check out his channel, subscribe. He makes great content. Clax. Clax was my review for last week. I have never been the biggest Clax fan, but certainly compared to Yar's Revenge and Caverns of Mars, it's a more ambitious port. Um, there's a lot going on. I definitely heard some complaints in the comments that the top conveyor belt uh, was short, and that was kind of explained by Carlos Madruga in the comments as well. I'm not sure if he programmed this game or not, but um, probably not. But he knows a lot about programming, and he said it's probably a resolution issue on the Intellivision, that it's not like they could give it an extra 5 pixels. They would have had to give it a lot more space, and for everything that needs to be on the screen, um, probably not doable. Um, but Clax, uh, it's an ambitious port. It's a good port. I honestly feel like if I gave it more time, I would like it a lot more. Again, it's a source material thing. It's not the quality of the game. I'm gonna throw it in B because it is more ambitious. Certainly, I would assume harder to program than Caverns of Mars or Yar's Revenge. So I'm gonna put Clax at a B. Cosmic Avenger. So this is another port of a Coleco game, and it's a Coleco game I don't like. Picture Scramble, and Scramble's a good game. Phil, who's in the chat, is a um, really big Scramble fan. I've never been the biggest Scramble fan in the world, or Super Cobra, or any of those kind of games. But imagine Scramble, but then every once in a while you have this rocket that comes behind you and just blows you up. I find it annoying. I'm not a fan of the game. It's not a bad port. If you're a Cosmic Avenger fan, you'll like this game. But for me, I would put it at the C level. Um, I'm not a fan of Cosmic Avenger. Fantasy. So this is another port. Fantasy in the arcade, I did play a little bit. It's another game that I've never been a big fan of. Um, it seems to have a lot of cheap deaths in it. The way, for those of you who don't know, Fantasy is really a bunch of little mini games. Do this one task and then you'll advance to the next stage. Do this one task and then you'll advance to the next stage. And the whole point is you're trying to rescue your girlfriend or your wife or something. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Baseman. I'm not a big fan of Scramble. It's just never been my game. I understand that it's a good game. Just never been one of my favorites. Fantasy, there are a lot of stages. It's well done. The graphics are good. Um, it certainly has that pace of the arcade. It feels really cheap at times. Cheap as in like cheap deaths. The product, none of these products feel cheap. Um, but with the amount of stages, with the amount of stuff in it, I'm happy putting it at a B. I would recommend it. If you like fantasy, you'll like that a lot. Napoleonic Wars. So this was programmed by Brian's Man Cave, and if you guys aren't familiar with Napoleonic Wars, it's a version of Stratego with a lot of stuff added. And there was a team of people that was put together. We had Alan Toledo making music. Obviously, Brian's Man Cave programmed the game. We had Justin Cheer making graphics for the game. I gave ideas. I was a playtester, and I was asked my opinion on the game, and I gave some suggestions, and they took them all. And I know it's not for everyone, but I think the quality of the execution, I think for those of you who do like Stratego, this is a fantastic version of Stratego. Having been part of the team, maybe I'm really biased, but I put that one at A tier. Um, if nothing else, for the quality of experience that it gives you. You know, the game may be basic, but with all the cutscene images and all the music tracks, I think it belongs up there. I know probably a lot of people wouldn't agree with me, but I think it belongs up there. Caverns of Mars for Intellivision Gamer is a B. And you know what? I think that would be fair, but it's my list, and we can still be friends even though we've got a little difference of opinion. You know what? You're probably not wrong. I like it. I like it a lot. Omega Race. So this is another port. The arcade is really cool. So for those of you who aren't aware, a couple weeks ago, I went to Pastimes Arcade in Girard, Ohio. And the owner of that arcade has the Guinness World Record for the largest pinball collection in the world. But he also has hundreds upon hundreds of arcade cabinets and some really rare ones. It's the only place I've ever gone that I can play, just walk up to and free play a original computer space arcade. And they had a Mega Race, and it was the full sit-down cabinet. And what's really neat is that the buttons are down beside your seat. So you put your hands down beside yourself, and you control your ship that way. A Mega Race, you can kind of think of it as asteroids, but you're on kind of a course, a circle course. I like it a lot. It's a pretty basic port. They added a couple settings. They added some color settings. This one for me is a B. It's a solid B. I would recommend that. It's a good game to play every now and then. I like it. Upright and cockpits are works of art. Yes, I agree. And Retro Bliss, I do know what a playa is. We got playas in Canada. They usually have hockey sticks, but... Yes, I am a hoser. With a stubby beer and some maple syrup and a toque. Pumpkin Trilogy. So, this is a compilation of 3 games that NanoChess released on the Atari Age forums, put into a cart. I really like the fact that because each individual game is a mini game, I don't think they would warrant releases themselves. If they were each released as an individual cart, they'd be in this D category. I don't think that gives a value. But together, all 3 games are fun. Together and as a package, I actually quite like this. I would put it at the C tier. Again, not because any of them are bad games, but because they're all available for free to download individually. But for collectors and for people who want to play on their original hardware, it's nice to have these collections. And I think really going forward, having, you know, these small games, some small games have been released on cartridges, but if you start combining them, I think you increase the value for actually purchasing a cartridge. Because as you may recall, if you watch my video on Is Homebrew Too Expensive, I say it's not too expensive, but I do acknowledge it is very expensive. And so if I'm paying $60, $70 for a new Intellivision game, I want to make sure that there's value on that cartridge. And I think by putting the 3 there, they put value on that cartridge. That package is a solid D, he says. I would give it a C. I like them. Rick Dynamite. As Casey will attest, Rick Dynamite is hard as hell. It is tough as nails. It is an excellent game, but it is tough as nails. I was a playtester on Rick Dynamite. And actually I'm going to slide this over here so that I'm not looking off screen all the time. I just realized I'm doing that. Yeah, Mr. Baseman. It's kind of like a. It's kind of like a um, triple action card. Casey asks, "What? Who am I saying published Rick Dynamite and Space Patrol?" So these are all Homebrew Inc. releases. Now, Space Patrol, I'm getting to it. Yes, it is, I think, the seventh physical homebrew ever published. It was originally published by Left Turn only, but the re-release is published um, by Homebrew Inc. with permission. So that's why it's on this list. But back to Rick Dynamite. I was a playtester on Rick Dynamite, and I did beat the game. Obviously, as a playtester, we get cheats to give us infinite lives just to make sure we can get through and actually play every level. Um, but yes, Rick Dynamite, Dr. Volk, you're right. It's a Nintendo level hard game, but for the Intellivision. That said, it's easily an A. You will get your value for money out of Rick Dynamite. If you don't like the game, it'll suck. But I like the game a lot, and its difficulty really gives that extra value. Space Patrol. So, as Casey was alluding to, this was a 2007 release by Left Turn only, and it was a very rare early Intellivision homebrew, and therefore on the resale market was very expensive. And so what Homebrew Inc. did is they re-released it. Space Patrol is a port of Moon Patrol. It was programmed by Joe Zbishak, who is a legend in the homebrew community. And I would say normally, so I'm kind of rating these. You also have to keep in mind something that was released in 2007. In 2007, this was S tier. You needed to have this. But I'm rating these in 2024. And so I'm giving them 2024 ratings. Space Patrol, for its historical value and for the fact that it allows a lot of people who otherwise never would have been able to get this cartridge to get it, and for its historical significance, I'd probably give it a B plus, but I'm going to slide it into the A category. Thunder Soldier. Thunder Soldier is another recent release from Homebrew Inc. It was programmed by NanoChess. Um, it's a good game. It kind of plays a bit like Contra, but not as good. It's not a bad game by any stretch, but there are a lot of places, a lot of spots in Thunder Soldier that I thought could do better. I thought the graphics could be better. I thought, like, you press up to jump, especially with the Intellivision. If you're a programmer, don't ever do that. Up on the disc to jump is just a really, really bad idea. And as such, those few kind of, not letdowns, but things that keep it, for me, they keep it out of the A category. I don't think it belongs in the C category, so we're going to throw it in B. Good game, just could be better. So, Rev is in the chat and he says it is not by Homebrew Inc. You're right, it is not by Homebrew Inc. I made it very clear that it was a re-release of the LTO Left Turn Only game released by Homebrew Inc. And simply because it's on the list as being a release from Homebrew Inc., even though it was not programmed by anybody that was affiliated with Homebrew Inc. at the time, it gets on the list. Wizard of War. So Wizard of War, I forget who it was in the chat mentioned, but I did see Cannabis Kid. Yes, it uses IntelliVoice. It has the voices. It's a solid Wizard of War game. If you like Wizard of War, this is a great version of it. I would argue that the Champ Games version on the Atari 2600 is better. it's a solid game. If you like Wizard of War, it definitely belongs in your collection. Um, I'm personal bias because I really like Wizard of War. I'm going to put in an A, but I could definitely see an argument for it to be in B. Mr. Chess. It's chess. It's programmed by NanoChess. Surprise, surprise. Um, it is an impressive chess game for the Intellivision. I am not a big chess guy, but if you are, it is, in my opinion, the best Intellivision chess game. It is quicker than the original Intellivision chess. It has a tournament mode where you're able to play against a few different characters, including a monkey. Um, Good game. I would put it in B tier. Um, if you're a big chess fan and a big Intellivision fan, this might be an S tier for you. But for me, I would put it in B tier. Yes, Mr. Postal. It's chess. It's chess. Um, like I said, it's a good version of chess. It's got lots of features that I've never even gotten to. But yeah, it's a good version of chess. And last but not least is Stop the Express. This is the physical release. So this was originally released as a ROM-only purchase on Intellivision Collector. But then it was picked up as a physical release for Homebrew Inc. Stop the Express is a port of an MSX game, I believe. I think it was also on microcomputers at the time. I could be wrong. I'm not a fan of the game personally. I respect that it is well made, and like it's okay. Um, but it's a great version. Like if you like Stop the Express, and if you watch the footage from my game review and you're thinking, hey, I like how that looks. It looks good and it plays just like it looks. It's a quality game. Um, Definitely not A tier. I don't think it belongs with these other ones at C tier. I think that one's another B tier. So for Homebrew Inc., Mr. Posthouse says, wait, a monkey playing chess changes everything. All good 80s games or old consoles are better with monkeys or apes. Fair enough. Still gets a B, Poe. So that is my Homebrew Inc. Ranking. Um, solid, solid lineup. Lots of A's and B's here. Only a few C's. I could see the argument of that dropping down. I could also see the argument of that dropping down. But I'm giving them C's and I'm happy with that. So, moving on. Caverns of Mars was robbed. Intellivision Gamer coming in and saying Caverns of Mars was robbed. Okay, you know what? You know what? Not just for you, but because I do like it, and I like it more than these other two. This is a C plus that I dropped to a C. I'll throw it to B for you. But just know that for me, it's somewhere in between here. There you go. The official ranking bumps Caverns of Mars up for you. Intellivision Collector. So Intellivision Collector, what I've done is I've also added the Blah Blah Woof Woof games that were recently acquired by Intellivision Collector because Blah Blah Woof Woof is no longer publishing. And those ones are Space Bandits, Parsec, Lode Runner, and Buck Rogers. So, we're going to start from the start of the list here with Beachhead. Beachhead is a port of a computer game from the mid-'80s. It's the type of computer game that I would have really liked at the time. But now, and especially on the Intellivision, so it's split into four stages with an optional fifth stage. Dr. Volk says, remember, if you want to bump your game in the ratings, just use bribery. Bribery works, sure. This is just a fun experiment, so. Beachhead. The optional fifth stage is the torpedo stage, where you guide your ships through this kind of maze of torpedoes. I love that stage. The second last stage, or what you might consider the first half of the last stage, you're driving your tank on the beaches and trying to get to the fortress, and I love that stage. No, I'm not skipping the I'm not skipping the poker game, Mr. Baseman. I love that stage. And all the other stages are like calculating the angle of your artillery to hit whatever you're trying to shoot at. And those stages just feel like work. So for me, Beachhead definitely goes in that C category. It's not a bad game. It's not a game that I would be like, oh, you got to go out and get this. And personally, I'm just not a fan. You may disagree, and that is A-okay for you. And sorry, Intellivision gamer, Mr. Postyle's favorite game is not going to make appearance because I don't believe there is an Intellivision homebrew port of Popeye. Buck Rogers. Okay. Buck Rogers. Cyrus, Super Graphics 64, Super Mega Graphics 64, is going to be upset at me. I like Buck Rogers, the character. I like Buck Rogers, the universe. I don't like Buck Rogers, the game. I find it monotonous. It's a really straightforward shooter. You move back and forth, you move up and down, kind of, to dodge 3D enemies coming at you. Yeah, it's again not a bad port. None of these publishers make bad games. And yeah, Dr. Volk has the exact line. C is not a bad game, it's just not for me. And that's definitely where Buck Rogers goes. It's alright, but I don't, I'm not gonna be plugging it in when I'm looking for my shooter fix. There's definitely other better ones even coming up. Operation Cloudfire. Alright, our first S. Everybody should have Operation Cloudfire. Operation Cloudfire is a Metroidvania style game, and it does a really good job of setting that mood. Like, it even kind of feels like that gloomy Metroid mood. It's got, you know, great audio. It's got great atmosphere. The gameplay is solid. Must have for the Intellivision. I love Operation Cloudfire. I have not gotten around to doing a review of it yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. Jolt7800 says, it's amazing how many homebrews are on this system alone. There is a gentleman in the chat, Rev, Intellivision Revolution. He's published more games than all three of these guys put together, I believe. He's very, very prolific. So there are currently more homebrew games for the Intellivision than there are original games. The original system had 125. I think we're like at 160 homebrew games. All right, Dragon Quest. This is a port that doesn't really add anything. Aside from you can access certain actions with the keypad instead of having to go through a menu. And despite that, we have a second S. Dragon Quest, which on the NES was Dragon Warrior. And what's really funny is I saw on the Intellivision Homebrew Awards that Luke didn't know that in Japan, Dragon Warrior was called Dragon Quest. He just named it Dragon Quest. And certainly the series now is called Dragon Quest. They've just merged it. There's no Dragon Warrior anymore. So he had no idea that this was still, at least, you know, from a title perspective, obviously from a game perspective, was still infringement. But it's just such a well done port of the NES version of Dragon Warrior. It looks like Dragon Warrior. It plays like Dragon Warrior. It sounds just like Dragon Warrior. If I played it for you and you closed your eyes, you would think I was playing on the NES. And considering that the NES, well, the Famicom anyway, came out 5 years after the Intellivision did, and the Intellivision's able to do that game and do the full game and do it right, I can't say enough good things about Dragon Quest. Fox's Quest. So this is a game that I really liked when I got it. It's a decent port. It's not a perfect port, but it's a decent port. And I say it's a decent port because I have played games like this. It's a box pushing game where you have to get all the boxes to a certain area of the screen, and once you fill up that area of the screen, you advance to the next stage. And you got to make sure that you don't trap the boxes, and you want to do it in as few moves as possible. Yeah, sorry, Poe, you're not able to say that because Dragon's Quest is awesome. Fox's Quest, I found out later, all the levels from it are directly taken from another game. And that disappointed me. It's not a bad game. I mean, considering that, you know, these other ports, obviously they take all their levels, but I thought it was original levels, because I had played games like this on my phone before, but I'd never played it on a console before. Now, granted, what it took from was Japanese exclusive, so a lot of people out here, myself included, would be like, oh, this is a brand new game. And it did add the character elements, but this is one of those C+ ones for me. It's a good game. It ain't perfect, but yeah, we'll put it at B. I had fun playing it, and I had fun with the little cutscenes, and the fact that they make it so that you can play any level you want right from the get-go. You don't have to play through. Mr. Bassman wants an Intellivision again. Yeah, you gotta get an Intellivision, man. There's some good games. Oh, the one thing I will mention too, all of these games from Intellivision Collector are also available as purchase for ROMs. So, Mr. Bassman, even though you don't have an Intellivision, if you get Michael Hayes' front end for JZINTV, or JZINTV if you're from the Great White North, eh? You could play all these games. No problem whatsoever. By purchasing the ROMs. Lock and Chase. Okay. I love Lock and Chase. I suck at Lock and Chase, but I love Lock and Chase. This is a physical release of the 8K version of Lock and Chase, which they chose not to release back in the day. The biggest difference, and it's advertised by this little starburst on the front cover, is that when you die, Lupin kind of shrinks and becomes just his hat. Cool piece of history. I'm glad it was released on a cart, but if you own the original Lock and Chase and you think you're getting a lot more with this, You're not. And for that reason, I'm putting in the C. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm getting a whole bunch of new levels. I'm getting a whole, a whole bunch of new stuff, new features. You're not. You're getting a historical, something that was planned for, or at least proposed back in the day and never came to fruition. But really, the differences from the original game aren't that high. The box, Casey's right, the box is amazing. The artwork in the box, you open it up and it's got like the maze on the inside. The production value is great. I just think that a lot of people might purchase this not thinking, like not being aware of what it is, and would be disappointed, and that's why it's in the C. Very well executed. If you're a fan of Lock and Chase, if you're a fan of the Intellivision, and you want this piece of history on a cartridge, absolutely go and buy it. I don't say it's bad. Yes, Casey said it does control a little better, but it is still Lock and Chase. So that's going to be in C tier for me. Lode Runner. So this was, if I'm not mistaken, a January release from Blah Blah Woof Woof, but it is now an Intellivision Collector property, even though obviously Intellivision Collector does not own the Lode Runner IP. Lode Runner is a fantastic game, and actually I'm going to slide Space Panic up here too because they're very similar. Lode Runner is a great game. I am again not great at it. Any of these maze games, and Lode Runner and Space Panic, although they're considered climbing games or like among the first platformers, or digging, some people even call them digging games or ladder games. They're really kind of in that maze game thing where you're maneuvering around a screen trying to accomplish something while bad guys try to get you. So with Lode Runner, you have to collect the gold bars and exit the level. And you can dig and trap the guys that are chasing you. You can dig and sometimes they'll fall through and die. The levels can get really, really hard. There's something like 151 levels, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they're all in the Intellivision game, because Lord knows I haven't been able to get past the first 15 or so. I need to play it some more, but Lode Runner gets an A from me. One of the most important things when you're doing a port is picking what to port, and Lode Runner was a great choice. Another great choice is Space Panic. Now, if you were to sit down and play Space Panic, with Lode Runner being the more popular franchise, you would think, oh, Space Panic is a ripoff of Lode Runner. But actually, it's the other way around. Space Panic came out before Donkey Kong. Space Panic came out, if I'm not mistaken, in 1980. And it is very similar to Lode Runner. There's platforms with ladders, and you run around, except for in Space Panic, you're not collecting gold bars, you're not collecting, you're not trying to find the exit. You are actively trying to kill the aliens that are chasing you. So you can dig a hole, and then you can fill it back in. I really don't know which one of these two I like better. So they both go at A for me. If you're really tight on budget, I can't really recommend one over the other. Look at footage of both of them and, figure out which one you think looks better. They both play great. Lode Runner is certainly a little more complicated, but I can't pick one over the other. I love them both. Hello, Bart. How's it going? Better late than never? Yes, it is better late than never. Parsec. might piss some people off with this one. Because I know for the people who love Parsec, they love Parsec. This was a computer game from the early 80s, and it was on like the ZX Spectrum and other microcomputers. And ugh, I don't like it. I like seriously don't like it. Um, Bad guys come at you one at a time, and you have to basically, it tells you what's coming. The bad guy flies in, you shoot it. Depending on what type of enemy it is, it'll have a certain pattern. So once you memorize that, no big deal. Then you fly through like this asteroid phase, which I learned that if you just fly really low, 99% of them dodge you, and then you just kind of go up and down when one comes at the bottom. And then you have this really annoying stage where you go and have to land, or not land, but fly through this little thing to refuel. And I don't like it. I think the port is fine. The original port, the actual physical copy that I have, has a bug where you can't pass a certain point. I think it just keeps going on forever and ever and ever and ever. But that bug was fixed and released. If you love Parsec, great, pick up this game. If you don't already love Parsec, sorry, that's our first D. It'll probably be our only D. I don't think it belongs on a cartridge. Again, personal opinion. If you think this is an S, power to you. We can still be friends. But Parsec, for me, is a D. Penguin Land. Penguin Land is a port of a game that was on multiple systems. I knew it most from the Master System. Intellivision Gamer says S for Parsec. We disagree, but I like you anyway, Casey. Will I do this in the future with other publishers? I like these ranking videos. I'd love to. The fact of the matter is, like, I'd love to do an Intellivision Revolution one. I'd love to do one for Cote Gamers. I haven't played all their games. I have something like 30 Intellivision Revolution releases. And that isn't like even half of them. I don't think. And I don't think it's fair for me to rank games that I haven't played. But maybe I rank the ones that I do have. That's a possibility. And I can create tier lists for that. Steve Jones says Parsec was on the TI-99, the Texas Instrument. Most popular game for that system. I don't doubt it. I've played a good amount of TI-99 games, and most of them suck, at least from my opinion. And so, like, I can understand how if you had a really low-powered computer from the early 1980s and you got Parsec and you're like, oh, this is awesome. For me, it ain't. And, I don't apologize for my opinions, but I do preface them. And it's not a badly made game, but it's not even one of those just not for me games. It's like I actively don't like it. And I would say probably it's the only one that I actively don't like. Getting back to Penguin Land. Penguin Land, I'm familiar with it from the Master System. It is a great version. It's a puzzle game at heart, but it's got action elements. You've got to protect your egg from, I think, this gopher or whatever that's chasing you, as well as polar bears and other dangerous things. And also, you can't make it fall too far. I like Penguin Land. I don't love Penguin Land, but the port is very well done. The graphics are great, the music are great. And if you press 9 at the title menu, your egg is invulnerable. You can still lose levels because you can dig yourself to a point where you can't dig anymore. But that makes it a lot more approachable. I would say Penguin Land is A tier. It's missing something, for me anyway, to be S tier, but it's an A tier game. Poker Risque. Mr. Baseman has been dreading this. I'm sure Retro Bliss is dreading this. This game is an homage to those those games that you would get usually on the computer in the 80s, where it's strip poker, and you'd kind of titter, and you're like, oh, I see little 8-bit boobies. Fat Boys Gaming and Nonsense says, what's up, and everyone, hope you're all doing well. We survived the hurricane. I'm glad you survived the hurricane, Fat Boy. And yes, please hit the like button. Poker Risque. So the thing about it is, like the Mystique games from the 80s, they all sucked. Like Beat 'em and Eat 'em sucks. Custer's Revenge sucks. Bachelor Party sucks. They're not good games, but you're all kind of like, tee hee hee. The problem that I have with Poker Risque is there's a really good poker game in there. And it's got that music, and it's just, it evokes everything. So I am going to say that if you can put up with having to hide it from your kids, and you can put up with your spouse rolling their eyes, Poker Risque is B tier for me. It's a good poker game. Yeah, it really is a good poker game. Space Bandits. Okay, this is a cool one because this is a brand new one. This was supposed to be a blah blah woof woof release, but it is now released by Intellivision Collector. I was a playtester on this one. I love Space Bandits. It's not graphically impressive. It doesn't have cutscenes. It doesn't have awesome music, but the gameplay is just so good. You're moving around trying to collect these crystal things. I think they're crystals. And eventually, like, if you don't collect them fast enough, they become irradiated and you can't get them. But you're also dodging enemies that are trying to go around, and it's kind of like, and you've got ladders to go down, but it's a 3D perspective where you go, deeper and deeper into the environment. If it had maybe some cutscenes and music, it'd be easy S tier for me. It's an A plus, but I'll put it with the A tier. I highly recommend Space Bandits, and it is available now. If you are purchasing a physical copy from Intellivision Collector, I should also note this. He is on summer vacation until July 22nd, so they won't be shipped until after that. But if you're buying a ROM copy, they will be delivered instantly because that's all automated. The Show Must Go On. Easy S tier for me. So I think it was called like Mr. Chin or something back in the day, was this plate spinning game. And I did a review recently, I think a week ago, on a Atari game called Dishaster, which is a plate spinning game. Both of those are not good games. The Show Must Go On is awesome. So it's a plate spinning game. You've got to collect the plates, put them on top of the pole, spin, and have them spinning. And if they get too slow, they'll fall off. So if you see them getting slow, you got to go back to that pole and spin it some more. And the goal is to get plates on top of all of the poles in the level. And I see all that dirty talk in the chat. Mr. Chin. But Now you have to do all this while an opposing joker, like you're a jester, and an opposing jester is trying to straight up murder you. And he murders you with knives, throwing knives. There are bats that come and like take your plates. I hate those guys. He's got like fireballs that he throws at you that like light up the ground. And you not only have to get poles up and keep them all spinning and move back, you know, get the one that's about to fall here and then get back up. But it's got this really cool scoring mechanic where you have an audience. You're actually performing and you're trying to impress the king. And the audience will change colors based on whether or not they're entertained. And so things that entertain them is you dodging a knife that's thrown, or you jumping, or, you know, making a show of it. You can't just play it as like, oh, I got this plate, this plate, this plate, done, ta-da. The crowd's not going to be super impressed with you. You've got to make a show of it. And so all those extra little bits, the show must go on. Love, love, love the show must go on. If you want 99 lives, press 9 on the keypad at the menu, and that gives you 99 lives. Vanguard. Vanguard was the first release from Intellivision Collector. It is a straight port of the, I believe it's a straight port of the 5200 version of the game. I like Vanguard. It's not one of my favorite games, but I like Vanguard. It's definitely a good version of Vanguard. It controls well. I like it a lot. I think Vanguard is a solid B tier. Is it, especially considering that it's a port of the 5200 game, and a lot of people find the 5200 to be not very approachable because of the controllers. I think, now 5200 is a very good version of the game, but again, it's not a very approachable shooter, approachable system. So I think it absolutely warrants a cartridge release. Yeah, so I'll put that at B tier. Chris Walker says, the only game to take you to the Rainbow Zone. Unless it's Mario Kart, then you can play Rainbow Road, which one would presume is in a Rainbow Zone. X Rally. So this is a port, obviously, of Rally X, and it's an excellent port. It includes everything. It's got the radar. It's got the bonus levels. It's got yes, Jolt. The Intellivision version just does have the Gond at the end of each cavern or tunnel. It's an excellent version. It has one drawback, and that is particularly with the vertical scrolling. And I think this has in part to do because your radar is a fully functioning radar. It's a little choppy. Does it take away enough? Yes, Mr. Postal, if you watched my my Vanguard review, I recreate that commercial as my intro. Is it enough? Because I like X Rally. And yes, as Casey mentions, this was Sergio's first game, and it's really impressive as a first game. Is that stuttering enough to drop it from A to B? No. X Rally gets an A. It is a solid port. I get used to the scrolling. It can be a little jarring at first. I would certainly understand if you said that the scrolling stutter drops it for you. But for me, I think X Rally is an A tier game. And so there you go. That is my Intellivision Collector rating list, which includes the Blah Blah Woof Woof games, which again are Lode Runner, Fox's Quest, Buck Rogers, and Parsec. And Space Bandits. We got 3 S tier here, and we got 5 A tier. Good solid library from Intellivision Collector. Now, this goes to the back, because that is technically Homebrew Inc. Let's be honest. We're talking about the GOAT now. Electronite has been producing physical homebrews since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I hopped on as a game tester for Electronite in 2014, and it was my introduction to Intellivision Homebrew. I am going to rate these as 24. As 2024 should you buy. And yes, Mr. Baseman, this is the last publisher that I'm covering. So some of these games, because Electronite's been doing it for as long as they have, when they came out, they might have been S or A tier, but now they may be C tier, for instance. But right off the bat here, A Tale of Dragons and Swords is an S tier game. A Tale of Dragons and Swords is a dungeon crawler. You could say similar to A Legend of Zelda when you're in the dungeons, or you could say similar to... I'm not really sure what you'd say similar to. Even kind of a Gauntlet, although you don't get all the enemies. But you're exploring this dungeon, you go through several different levels, you have to get earn gold by killing enemies, find the characters, the NPCs in the dungeon that sell you item upgrades, that give you special abilities, allow you to get you to new places, and be stronger, and eventually face one of, if not the most impressive boss battles in any Intellivision game. All right, Mr. Baseman, take care. Feel free to come and watch this one later, because there's going to be a bunch of S's in this one. Wonderful game. 3 endings. You can get the first 2 endings on any difficulty, but the third ending you can only get on hard difficulty. Great game. Great game. And my review of this was the introduction of Mike the Knight. Anthropomorphic Force. S tier. This is a hard game. Even on easy, this is a hard game. But it's generous with its checkpoints. Intellivision Gamer. He just spammed my member emoji of me in drag from my James Bond review. Yes, I dressed up as a femme fatale. I also dressed up as Blofeld and as James Bond in that intro. It's one of my favorite intros. Anthropomorphic Force, shooter. Almost feels like Caverns of Mars sometimes, because you're moving down through a cavern to get to a boss, and then you move down through a cavern to get to a boss. But you shoot very different. You're in kind of like one of these Macross kind of things. Very hard game. Not unbeatable by any stretch. I have not played it on the harder difficulties. I'm scared to. But such a good game, and all the bosses, like, they're big. Like, the Intellivision doesn't do, like, you get 8 sprites on an Intellivision. And the fact that he's able to have this big, massive, like, earthworm that attacks you, or jellyfish, or spider that takes up, like, half the screen. So impressive. Great game, great music. Love it. Boulder Dash. Boulder Dash has a special place in my heart, because it is the first Intellivision Homebrew game I ever played. And it was the first Intellivision Homebrew I ever played because I was a game tester on this, and I actually met William through a video game Facebook group where he was asking, does anybody know how to play Boulder Dash and is decent at Boulder Dash and want to play test this for me? and he lived at the time in Hamilton, which was he was like a 15-minute drive from me. I went over. I sucked, but he's like, you know what? Here, I'll make you a cart. Take it home, play it some more, and if you get any better, let me know. Otherwise, I'll need the cart back. And within 3 days, because I played it and played it and played it and played it, I was able to beat every level. And a fun story is there's one of the bonus stages that I played. There are a lot of very attractive people in Canada. I would do terrible in a drag race up here. Canada drag race. And so I beat one of the bonus levels, and one of the other testers had kept saying, it's not beatable, it's not beatable, it's not beatable. Well, this is a port of the, it's probably closest to the Atari 8-bit version. And so what I would do to learn how to beat each level is I would go on YouTube, watch somebody beat the 8-bit Atari version, and then go back and just try to do that in the same levels. And I figured out how to beat that level, and I was able to beat it like on the last second. I was able to get in the thing. And I told him, no, it is beatable. It's very, very tight, but it's beatable. He's like, I don't believe you. I need to see footage. And so I filmed it on my CRT, and he went completely silent after that. Another thing to note is that Boulder Dash is fully licensed. That license unfortunately expired. This is one of the ones you may not be able to get now. Ask. There might be some old stock. Never know. But it is possible that you wouldn't be able to get this one. There are also, exclusive to this version, 5 bonus caves that were programmed by Scott Nuds, the programmer. And to access those, again, I believe you press 9 at the title screen. Fully licensed port, wonderful version, bonus material, A tier for Boulder Dash. Thank you, Casey. Yes, I love this shirt. I was actually going to grab my Intellivision Collector shirt. I haven't used it on camera yet, but I have an Intellivision Collector shirt that I will use when I review one of those. Cat Attack. Cat Attack is another Rally X clone. It does a lot of things different, though. It doesn't have a radar. You play as a mouse, and the enemy cars in the maze are cats, and your goal is to go through the mazes and get cheese. There's no radar, but it does give you kind of an indication where cheese, the general direction that cheese is, and it does give you, if you're playing on an easier difficulty, you have the option to turn it on off, give you a general idea of where cats are. It also has a slider, so you can play it in super slow mode, or you can play it in ultra fast mode. I actually find it aggravating in slow mode, but if you got little kids, that's great. It is a solid version. It's got good music. Again, like Rally X, or X Rally rather, it's probably a B+, but I'll slide it up to the A tier. If you were to tell me, should I get X Rally or should I get Cat Attack, I would ask you, do you prefer smooth scrolling, because Cat Attack has a smooth scrolling, or do you prefer to have the radar? And it's a trade-off. So if you prefer the radar, you get X Rally. If you prefer the smooth scrolling, you get Cat Attack. They're both great games. D2K Arcade. So like I mentioned earlier, this has DK Arcade in it, and so that's, you can play Game 1, which is DK Arcade, and you can play Game 2, which is D2K, and that's 5 new levels. Solid homebrew, even today. If you're a Donkey Kong fan, which I'm not really, but if you're a Donkey Kong fan, that's a solid purchase every day of the week. I'm going to skip, I'm going to go right to DK Arcade. In today's market, if you are looking to invest in some Intellivision Homebrew, DK Arcade, although it is a wonderful port, it is included in D2K. You do not need to purchase this one. If you have zero interest in bonus levels, you just want the OG Donkey Kong, pick it up. I have no problem recommending it. Like, it is a good game, but it's included in this one. You don't really need it. And so that's why it's at C tier for me. At the time when this came out, D2K had already been released. Like, this was available as ROM prior to that, but Elektronite's first release, believe it or not, was D2K Arcade. And then they came out after with DK Arcade because people wanted it. If you're a collector, you got to get it. But if you're not a collector and you just want the games, get D2K Arcade. Defender of the Crown, another fully licensed port. This is missing... This has the joust in it, but it is missing the flails, the ball and chain fighting. It's a different kind of game for sure. Think it's got a bit of risk to it. Like it's got a map screen and you're managing armies and fortresses and you siege castles, and if you're in trouble you contact Robin Hood and he gives you some troops to help fight, and your goal is to take over all of England, so that I guess the king can be reinstated. It's a decent game, but I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I really wanted to be. There are better versions elsewhere. In other versions, I get the joust, like I succeed in the joust like 75% of the time. In this version, I think I've only succeeded in the joust like 2 or 3 times out of the 50 times I've tried. Ambitious. If it had been a little less ambitious, it probably would have gone higher, but I would put that at B tier. Hover Bover, another fully licensed game. Hover Bover is Jeff Minter at his best. Llamasoft. This has IntelliVoice. I'm trying to look. Are there other ones there that have IntelliVoice? There are. Anthropomorphic Force has IntelliVoice. I know that. Oh, hey, I didn't see you come in there. Hover Bover is a great game. It's... I really like Hover Bover. There's not too much to it, and I wish it had more levels, but just in pure gameplay, like, literally, you steal your neighbor's lawnmower and you're mowing your lawn, and you've got your trusty dog with you, and you try not to run over your dog, and you try to dodge your neighbor who's chasing you, and if you accidentally run over the plants, then the gardener's chasing you too, and you beat each level by mowing all the grass. You wouldn't think that would be a good game, but it is a fantastic game. Infiltrator. We're back to S. Infiltrator is Metal Gear Solid on the Intellivision. Brilliant, brilliant game. Super impressive. I like it a lot. There's really not much more to say. You've got Metal Gear on your Intellivision. Much better than the NES version if you've ever played the NES version. Lost Caves of Kraz. This is one that William actually doesn't like, but I think the reason that he doesn't like it is because of it was a pain to publish. Lost Caves of Kraz, the way I like to kind of pitch it is Lost Caves of Kraz is like a Zelda game if it was only, like Zelda Breath of the Wild, if it was only the shrines, right? You go into all these different rooms and you have to solve a puzzle. And then you get a piece of the crown, and that allows you to advance to the next level. And then you get a piece of, then you have to solve that puzzle. And you have to, like, move blocks, you have to switch levers, and it's a really good brain game. For me, it's an easy A. I really like Lost Caves Across. Match 5. Match 5 is not the most impressive looking game, but it is a very, very addictive puzzle game. If this was on a phone, this thing would sell millions of, well, not sell, but we get millions upon millions upon millions of downloads. You have to, every turn, you're able to move one piece. And then a few more pieces show up on the board. And you have to then move another piece, and then more pieces show up on the board. And the idea is to create matches to clear areas so that you don't get blocked off. I would give Match 5 an A. Match 5's an excellent game. Mindhunter. This one's kind of funny. This was another early Elektronite release. I believe it was programmed earlier. It was an earlier homebrew that was then released physically by Electronite. It's Minesweeper. It's a good version of Minesweeper, but it's Minesweeper. In 2024, it's not a bad game. I don't think it deserves D. In 2024, this doesn't get a cartridge release. Good version of Minesweeper, but you can play Minesweeper for free in a lot of other places. Yes, it could. It could. Miner 2049er. Fully licensed. The thing about this is the best version of Miner 2049er that's ever been released. It's got not only the original 10 caves, but it has 10 extra caves that had input from the original programmer, Bill Hogue. Like I said, it was fully licensed. That license was then sold to, believe it or not, I believe Atari. And so this is another one that you might not be able to get a hold of. If you see it for a good price, pick it up. It is the best version of Miner 2049er out there, hands down. Just by virtue of the fact that you've got twice as many caves in it. It looks like it belongs on the Atari 8-bit computers, but it plays fantastic. Ninja Odyssey. Okay, so right now up here we got 2 Kai Magazine games. This was Kai Magazine's Oscar Kenneth, if I'm not mistaken, it was his first published game, was Ninja Odyssey. It's a really good game. I like it a lot. I love it. But I think it's missing that S quality. Just not the quality. It's obviously really good quality. It's got good music. It's got cinematics and stuff like that. It just, that extra little special something that bumps it up to S. It doesn't have the same depth as, say, a Tale of Dragon and Swords or Anthropomorphic Force. I can beat Ninja Odyssey at least one run through. You can then run through the game again up to 3 times, I believe, with increasing difficulty. But I can get through it the first time in like 20 minutes. Shorter game. But I was also a playtester on this, so I've been playing it for a long time. Great game, highly recommended, just not quite S tier. Old School. This is another maze game. Kinda, it's an earlier Electronite homebrew. Yeah, a maze game, kind of like a Pac-Man or a Lock and Chase or any of those kind of games where you have a maze and you're trying to get around and collect things and then exit, and you can move screens and get to new areas. Good game. I haven't played it in a long time. You've got, and I think actually what it's showing here is somebody being hit with a chalk brush. I think you actually pick up chalk brushes and you can throw it at enemies to stun them, if I recall correctly. This one's a solid B. It's a good game. When it first came out, it could have been A or S for sure because it's pretty unique. But nowadays, I'd put it B. You're not going to be disappointed if you pick it up. Paddle Party is a collection of mini games, all based on kind of the Pong mechanics. So you've got air hockey, you've got a legit Pong, you've got like space Pong thing. I remember there's one where like asteroids take out the playfield. But today, it's kind of like Mindhunter. Back when you were getting 5 or 6 new Intellivision games every year, man, that's up here. Cool. We got this compilation cart. Nowadays, when you're getting like 30 games a year, maybe it doesn't belong to be one of them. Let me have a sip of water. Robot Army. Not gonna be disappointed. Yes. Robot Army. I am the voices in this game. Those are not the digitized voices. That is me being very bland and being robots. What I like about this is Robot Army is Berserk, but it has a story mode. And that story mode, you move through, you're basically moving through a maze to try to find the boss, which would be like Evil Automeyer or something like that. And then it has a boss fight. It's got cutscenes, and it's got music, and it's got great music. Robot Army, I'd put A tier. I've always been a fan of Berserk. If you're not a fan of Berserk, you might drop it a bit. But for me, I really like Berserk, and this is a great version of it because it has the extra elements. Hoo boy, Star Mercenary, no question. Star Mercenary is S tier. Mike stars in this game. S tier instantly. No, it isn't. Star Mercenary is like kind of like Bosconian, that kind of, or maybe the Dreadnought Factor, that kind of game where you're flying over, but it's got RPG elements. It does have slowdown because of all the stuff that's on the screen, but that slowdown never detracts from how awesome it is. It is the kind of game that you have to grind a bit before it gets really at its best, because you start off with a very weak ship with a very slow boost and a short boost, and you don't have a lot of lives or shields or whatever they call them. So you'll fly in, you'll shoot 2 ships, then blow up, and then you get your little bit of money from that, and you go back and you do it until you're able to upgrade your ship, and then the rest of the game's awesome. But it's S tier. It's hands down S tier. I love that game. Steamroller. This is the first game that I was a voice in. This is IntelliVoice, and it is my voices in it. I'm the announcer. This is a completed version of a game that was started by James Rolfe. Is it James? No. It's not James Rolfe. James Rolfe is the Angry Video Game Nerd. But it's something very similar to that. Yeah, it's something. Maybe Casey can help me. But it's an excellent game. It's much better in 2-player. You're kind of in this maze, and there's things bouncing around it, and they're causing damage on the pavement. And you're driving on a steamroller, and you got to run over these to kind of heal them, and then also collect your color. There's like these balloon things or balls or whatever that you got to collect for points. And once everything is cleared from the screen, you have to escape the screen before it crushes you, because basically like this wipe comes down from the top, and if you don't escape, you lose a life, even if you won the level. Steamroller, as a piece of history and also as a really fun multiplayer game, which not a lot of these games are, I would put at A tier as well. My favorite game for the Intellivision, arguably my favorite game for the Intellivision, the Pandora Incident. Survival horror in space on the Intellivision. Who would have thunk it? And it's got multiple endings. It's got lots of different things that you can do. It sets the tone so well. Awesome, awesome, awesome game. Cannot recommend the Pandora Instant enough. If you are more into the arcadey kind of games, maybe it's not there, but I think it's one of those games that everybody needs to have. As is TNT Cowboy. TNT Cowboy is kind of a Bomberman with RPG elements. And it's just really, really well done. It's got a whole bunch of levels where you go through. It's got boss fights. You can choose, like, playing it through it once, you can't get every single upgrade. And so, you know, it's got replay value there. Excellent game. Dr. Volk asks, who contacts you to be involved in these homebrew developments? Do they have a beta invite or something and you sign up to be a part of it? Or do they come to you as one of the homebrew experts? So how I first got into it was literally a Facebook post saying, hey, does anybody have an Intellivision and want to test this game for me? And then I became an Electronite game tester after that because just they need game testers. As far as, like, they don't contact, I've been a game tester for probably about 10 years. I've had my YouTube channel for a year and a half. So certainly when I started doing it, I wasn't a homebrew expert, but yeah, just luck of who you know. If you're on the Atari Age forums and you see, like, because all the publishers are on there, you can get in contact with them and say, hey, I'd love to be a game tester, but you have to have original hardware. That's the key. At least with Electronite, we always test on original hardware. Somebody tests on a European Intellivision. I test on usually my Model 1, but sometimes I'll also test on my Model 2, because if it works on original hardware, then it should work in emulation. And if it doesn't work in emulation, that's the emulation's fault. If it works on original hardware, that's the important part. I am the master beta, sure. And then that is a Homebrew Inc. release, so that's not there. So, at least with my personal opinion, you can see why I view Elektronite as the GOAT. These guys have been the gold standard of homebrew on the Intellivision for a very long time. That is not to say, like Intellivision Collector, we got, especially as a percentage of all the games that Luke has published, lots of S's and A's. So, and even Homebrew Inc., like, you can't go wrong with a lot of these games. And, you know, the B's are good games. The C's, you know, you still probably won't be disappointed as long as you know what you're getting into. And you got your A's there. 3 great publishers. Contact information for all of these, or purchase information, is in the description. Like I said, I hold all 3 of them in high regard. They make a quality product. And your opinions may vary. And we can still be friends. So, I hope you like that. If you'd like me to do more of these tier lists, I'd be happy to. I just have to figure out what to do a tier list on, because I don't want to do a tier list on something, like, I wouldn't want to have something that I haven't played. I'm not going to, even if I have an opinion on it, it is not fair for me to give a ranking to something that I haven't played. So, like I said, I hope you liked this kind of new format. It's something that I wanted to do for quite a while, and this us not doing the podcast this week kind of just opened the opportunity to do that. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I hope you liked it, and we'll see you next time on Mike's Gaming Gala. Take care, guys.